Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 7th, 2025 regular meeting of the Milton Select Board. I'm going to start by calling our meeting to order. I want to go to agenda number 2 and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So item number 3 is public comment. Just to go over the guidelines, we don't have a big crowd here tonight. We don't have any crowd tonight. That's a good thing. Everyone's being smart, staying home in this cold. We normally allow 21 minutes, 3 minutes per speaker. I don't see anyone online. We have no one here for public comment, and I see no one online for public comment. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Thank you. We'll move right on to number 4, discussion update, fiscal year 2026 budget, and a 5-year forecast in operational override possibility for fiscal year 2026, as well as the fiscal year 2026 capital budget. Mr. Milano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had distributed to this board some slides from our previous presentation in December. I'll just run through a couple of those just to reset some of the conversation related to that, and I'll just kind of head that off in terms of talking about the capital budget. We are meeting again on Thursday with the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, so that work is underway, focusing Thursday on the Cunningham project. So we'll report back once the Capital Improvement Planning Committee has completed its work. So that's the update on the capital budget. As it relates to the regular town budget, operating budget for fiscal 26, just as a reminder, as where things stand, our revenue forecast is pretty final at this point. We're estimating about $136 million in revenues. Some potential, changes over the next month perhaps could be any revisions to new growth from new development and state aid, which we expect the state aid, the governor's budget to come out hopefully in a couple of weeks, which would then we would reset our state aid forecast based on where that budget lands. I don't have any updates in terms of where the state budget sits at this point. Haven't caught up with the latest, but we usually don't make any changes until that governor's budget comes out, which we expect in a couple of weeks. And local aid numbers start to come out around the time of the Mass Municipal Association's annual meeting, which is in 2 weeks. So I'll share any updates as I get those, but that's the revenue side, no changes since we last spoke. This is just a summary of where things stand presently between the schools, the shared costs, which are generally employee benefits and insurance and debt service, and then the town departmental operations over the last couple of years. This is, again, just for the level service asks. And we talked about this a little bit more in depth last time. Again, we have a bunch of shared costs that make up that shared cost category. And last time I spoke about the impact on health insurance in particular. We're looking at a significant increase in our health insurance budget due to how the fiscal 25 budget was put together, but also an increasing number of employees who are taking the town's health insurance plan. As you can tell here, we've had turnover since we set the budget based on where we expected employees to be versus where plans they actually are enrolled in. A net increase of 17 folks have joined the town's health insurance plan over the last few months. And I'll just note that the town's share of a family plan is upwards of $23,000 for a calendar year. So as more people migrate to a town family plan, it can be quite expensive. So the pressure that comes on our budget is through higher enrollment, and then we're also experiencing increased claims. So we have to be conservative in our forecasts where we expect premium increases will be. This is one of the biggest accounts in our budget, so I wanted to highlight it that we're facing budgetary pressure for claims and for a number of employees who are on the plans. Departmental budgets, we're just around a 4.5%, slightly over 4.5% increase for town department budgets for a level service budget. the budget submitted by the school department is a 9.4% increase, which includes their level service asks. We have requested and collected requests over and above a level service budget, which brings these requests slightly higher. The schools have essentially 2 years of requests for additional needs, 1.4 million in year one and 820,000 in year two. Across all the town departments, there's about $2 million in requests for fiscal 26 across town departments. So the bottom line of where things stand today, and we talked about that at our last meeting in December, is that we're about $9.5 million in the red with our budget forecast as things stand today, with no use of free cash. And we have $4.5 million of free cash that it was certified, that is available for appropriation. Of that $4.5 million, we would expect to use about $1 million for capital, as we've been doing the past couple of years, and I would like to try to continue that trend. We'd also want to look at putting money into stabilization, because the budget is continuing to grow, and we want our stabilization and reserves to grow alongside it. So when there is a true economic downturn, the town has some reserves to lessen the impact of an economic downturn. Again, I shared this historical chart just showing the average single-family tax bill, highlighted the years in orange in the chart, in red with the numbers that were override years. There has not been one since fiscal 2018. As we all know, the federal funding that came into play in the wake of the COVID pandemic has helped Milton and many other communities get through a couple of years without having an override. There was an operating override in 2010, as well as some debt service coming on that year, and an override in 2007. And I have a separate sheet that I shared in the packet about potential tax impacts of overrides. We're in a good position because round numbers make math easy for the most part. So our levy is about $100 million. So every $1 million that the tax levy on all the taxpayers goes up, it's about a 1% increase for the average single-family house. So a $9.5 million override. For the overrides portion would be about a 9.3% increase in the average tax bill. So that's just one way to look at it, and I'll pull up that chart in a moment. But that gives you a sense of, if today we were to move forward with a $9.5 million override to meet those level service asks as submitted, it would be about a 9.5% increase on those average houses for their tax bill. And I'll pull that chart up before everything goes crazy. Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
But am I correct in reading here that it's $1,435? That would be the
total in a given year, yes, because every year the tax bills are going to go up about 3%. So that delta I'm talking about is over and above kind of the annual increase that's already baked in.
right. But the $1,435 is the total.
Correct. So for a $9.5 million override, to use that figure, about another 1,063 increase on the average house would be part of, or as a result, a direct result of the override. And again, if you're slightly below the average house of about $1 million, your increase would be less than that. And as discussed, I distributed this chart in the packet, which shows just different figures. Every $1 million increase in the levy is about a $112 increase on the average single-family house. So you go from a range, I just produced a ranges of between $5 million up to $10 million to give a sense of what that tax impact looks like. So starting from about $600 for a $5 million override up to about $1,200 for a $10 million override, to give that sense of scale. So I think, those are the items I wanted to present on today. I think where staff and the schools are looking for some guidance is what number to start building. Well, the first question is, are we moving forward with an override? And if yes, then what number are we targeting? Where things stand today, to meet those level service asks without reductions to whether the school department asks or town departmental asks. It needs to be that $9.5 million number. If folks can go back, sharpen their pencils, and reduce their asks, that number can certainly come down. But on the town side, we're not going up very much, so it would be tricky to do that on our side of the house. And I know it would be as well for the schools. So that's the current state of affairs. Happy to take any questions or let you folks discuss.
Questions, comments? Ms. Musto?
Thank you. Mr. Milano, can you speak a little bit about with these different scenarios, how many years you would anticipate this would last? Because as we know, we don't want to, go out today and then next year come back out again. So I think that's one thing. And also talk a little bit about, you're talking about level service. And what are the extras that people are looking for as well?
Sure. So in terms of trying to make an override that's sustainable and can last a few years, I think the way that I'm looking at it anyway is we expect, if we go through the MSBA program on the calendar that we expect to go through that, the town will be asked to vote on a significant school project in the next 2 to 3 years. So to expect to come back and ask for another operating override in 2 to 3 years seems a challenging proposition. So it needs to be sustainable to get through the school project that we all expect is coming. So you're looking at a 5-year time horizon before I think we want to be back in front of voters. That's not an easy thing to do, to build it that way. But to your point, it's more about controlling costs in future years. If we say it's a $9.5 million override, then that means town and schools, that expectation is if salaries and expenses grow, then things may need to be cut back in that 5 years to make that sustainable. So to say, can we guarantee that if a figure is picked and we're going to be able to fund level service for the next 5 years because we do an override this year, I don't know if we can make that commitment, but we can try to live within our means as much as possible over the next 5 years once we move forward on something. And then in terms of departmental asks, I think it's a variety of asks that came from the town departments. It's generally small. I shouldn't say small. It's generally asks for a little bit of additional help in offices. Council on Aging has a part-time employee who's funded by the state grant that this department receives, and they've asked to make that position full-time. The health department has a part-time public health nurse and has asked to make that position full-time. The treasurer's office has requested a position have added hours to get to a full-time status to allow that staff to work to its full potential with the customer service demands that that office faces. So that's kind of the story across a lot of the departments. Primarily personnel. I think in an ideal world, we would also be looking at investing in expenses for the Department of Public Works, who, every year their costs for vehicle maintenance, for paving, for potholes, those costs don't stay the same. So to catch back up to where we've seen some of those expenses go would be good. And then we budget snow and ice at $160,000 a year. So, we've had one storm. We're going to be heading towards that snow and ice deficit already. Many other communities budget much higher amounts for snow and ice. So to right size that budget would be great, to invest in that. But it's not cheap, which is the problem we face.
Follow-up. Sure. I just know with regards to snow and ice in the past, the reason they did not want to put too much in that budget was my understanding was you couldn't pull it out if it was dedicated to that. So I think in the past they've used free cash for that, at least when I was in warrant committee.
The last couple of years, we've been able to fund it within other appropriations.
Because it didn't snow.
That's it.
Right,
yeah.
right,
And,
right.
and
But just a thought, yeah.
our costs are closer to over $500,000, and we're budgeting $160,000. So I agree. We don't want to raise it to $1 million.
Right.
But to reduce that pressure on our budget, we start July 1st. We know we're going to have a deficit in DPW when winter's over. So to not live in that world anymore would be great. But it's not as appealing as adding staff in other departments, in terms of what is a more exciting investment. But it's about building that sustainability.
Just one follow-up.
Final question?
Yep. Final question, Richard. So the question I had was, so people watching will understand, So if we're going for the higher number, is that adding positions or is that keeping what we actually have? So I'm just trying to get a sense
No, that's a good question.
from the different scenarios, what's actually adding, which is actually leaving things the way they are, a breakdown of that.
As things stand today, the $9.5 million rough number that we're talking about here satisfies departmental level service requests to keep things as they are today. On the town side, that's why we're at about a 4.5%. The school ask is higher, close to the 9.5%. But that is across the board level, no additional positions included in those requests. And that's why we have those additional numbers from both the school and the town departments that would fund over and above that budget. So as positions in the last few years were funded through federal grant money, absorbed into the operating budget, doing so knowing full well there was no long-term solution there. Now it's time to say, are we going to keep these positions or are we going to go in another direction?
Thank you.
And that was your final question? Just
No.
making sure. Okay, for now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I was teasing you.
So was I. So just to be clear then, any of these override numbers that are less than $9.5 million, would be both a tax increase and a reduction in services for the town? In some way or the
Yes.
other. And then to the point that you were alluding to just a minute ago, and kind of following up on Ms. Musto's question, if with the 9.5, if that went through, how much growth potential is there for the school budgets in the next couple of years? I'm frankly just a little concerned that we've recruited a superintendent in and asked him for his vision, and now we're not funding anything at all for the schools. We're just keeping them as is. And we've lost a couple of great town hires already, and I would really be disappointed if we were turning into a place where people knew that they couldn't achieve what they wanted to achieve because we weren't following through on the promises that we'd made when hiring. So how much breathing room does that 9.5 give us for the next couple of years?
So based on a current forecast, if assuming costs go up about 3% a year, where we would want to try to find a way to put money, some of that free cash away in stabilization to be able to draw down in future years. But there's no additional,
No.
because that is the bare minimum. I think one thing that Braintree did, and I don't know whether Braintree got the right amount or not, but one thing they did include in their override was $1.5 million of the 8 was dedicated to an override stabilization fund. Now that will grow 2.5% a year permanently. That could be used to draw down from and support the investments or the saving of positions that they did with their override. But that's not anything like that, like a permanent contribution
That would
to
have to be
stabilization, but that would have to be in addition to the numbers we're talking about today.
So that'd be like an 11, and then there would be like 1.5.
Correct, in that scenario, yeah. Or, I mean,
Just as an example.
yes, exactly. And unless something entirely unexpected happens and Chapter 70 is announced at $1 million higher than we expect, now that makes that conversation a little different, but I don't expect that, so
Yeah.
it's why
We don't buy lottery tickets for the town.
Exactly.
We might have to start. Ms. Bradley. Yes.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nick, can we go back to the FY26 forecast you had up on your slides? I want to try and figure something out here.
Which,
So it says here the needs-based request. So this is a needs-based request for FY26. But then it says year 1 for the schools, and then it says year 2 for the schools. Is that year 2 for FY27?
yes,
Okay, and then the town is just 2 million total for FY26.
yes.
That's needs.
Correct. What the distinction between the two is the superintendent has worked to take what his team have brought to him and,
Yep.
and triage and prioritize, and
Yep.
that's what the 2 million over 2 years is. The 2 million in requests that we've received is our departmental asks. That
Yeah, I
doesn't
saw that.
reflect any prioritization by myself or this board.
But you could prioritize some of those. I mean, I looked at it and one department alone asked for $617,000. So obviously that's, like a fourth of this,
Correct.
more than a fourth.
Right.
So there's a way that we could work on the needs that were asked to put it in FY27.
Right, and on the town side, I think you'll see the trend there, as I mentioned, the health department seeking to make a part-time position full-time. That doesn't
Absolutely.
cost us
Right.
$65,000, it might cost us $30,000. It may not be an additional benefit cost because that person may have already taken them or not. So it's like there's examples like that there may be impactful investments that
Right.
are not $100,000 in breaking the bank.
Right. So I got two more questions, and I'll be done. So the 9.5 is basically, I know Ms. Musto asked it, I know Mr. Zoll asked it. I'm kind of a little bit confused about it still. So break this down into like 6th grade English for me, or math. If we do a $9.5 million override,
If we tried, attempt.
Right.
Go ahead.
okay, if we did, that would mean that there is only what is normally would be our increases. So the 3%, the whatever we get. So there's nothing else extra. So these needs that are on here are non-existent. This will just possibly help us maintain a level service budget for FY27, FY20, possibly. We don't know,
right.
but possibly,
the goal would
right?
be to maintain what we have today for the next 5 years, but not add anything beyond that unless something else changes in the revenue picture in the next 5 years.
So the $4 million of needs, so this is going to be a part B to that question. So the $4 million of the needs is just forget it.
Unfunded and
Completely.
stays on a list that we look at and don't fund.
Okay.
Year over year.
My final question is can we take, I don't know if the 4.5 free cash for this year has already been earmarked. I'm assuming it probably might be. But is there a possibility that we could put that in specifically into the stabilization fund and flag that as something that can wait a year? We don't touch it for a year so it can gain interest. And then after that override, we can start using that money to help pay for some of these needs.
It increases
would.
the override, though.
No, it doesn't. Not if we take the $4.5 million that we currently have in free cash. You put it into a fund that you can't touch. It's a high return fund. You can't touch it for 1 year. And that allows us to get an amount of interest that will be above and beyond whatever interest rates are, which is like what, 2% maybe? Do you see what I'm saying? So do you get it, Richard? So it's
Unless
not
I'm
a.
thinking, but I think you have
think-
part of that's designated to the operating budget already, right?
So the 4. So what do we have left from the?
No,
4.5?
so I think what he's trying to say, and what my answer would be is, we would like to plan to do that in order to support level service in the next couple of years. Because next year, if a contract that we expect this year to be a 2% increase actually is a 4% increase, we're going to need more money in next year's budget to figure that out. So that's why we would put
So
money
we
into
can't-
stabilization, but to maintain what we're doing here, not to invest in additional asks. Because again, that source of funding, although it would be good and money that's in our stabilization fund does accrue earnings and interest income, but it's not going to be a sustainable source to support additional personnel. We would anticipate proposing to move some of that free cash into stabilization for that purpose, but to support and maintain and make sustainable whatever override we choose to today.
So you're planning on using whatever we have left over from that free cash as part of this 9.5 number that we're talking about? No?
To support that in subsequent budget years.
But you're afraid to put it in a lock fund for a year that would be a high yield return rate.
So if we put into stabilization, it'll be in a fund that earns interest and accrues interest, but we're not going to invest it in Facebook. I get it. If that's what you're saying.
Put it in like in mutual fund, like there are, like you could do CDs, you could do all
And
kinds of stuff with that
that's how our
money.
stabilization funds are managed.
It's currently working? Okay,
What's the return usually?
yeah.
I mean, last year, I had a slide showing last year we earned about $500,000 on $5 million, I think.
Oh, that's it?
Are they,
Well, that's
are
10%.
they for part of this?
That's-
Joanna and Amy?
If there are questions. Yeah.
You want to come join us, kids?
I keep looking over there because
I know,
our
I'm like,
financial people are
they're
sitting
both
over
here.
there.
So I'm going to ask our town treasurer and our town accountant, Joanna McCarthy and Amy Dexter, to join us at the table for any Q&As that may come your way. Since you're out on this freezing cold night,
know.
who brought them in this freezing? They couldn't have joined by Zoom? You want to file grievances now?
Non-union.
Doesn't matter. This is America.
So if I could ask them
You can do whatever you want.
directly, if we only do the 9.5, I'm trying to figure out exactly where that gets us in 3 years from now. Because what I'm looking at in 3 years from now, it's not going to get us very far. So I know I've got feedback going on. So I'm wondering from I mean, I know that the goal here, and the goal has been since I've been on the warrant committee forever ago, that, thank you, that we want to do a 5-year plan. Like that has been the town's goal since probably when Richard was a baby. It's been a plan, right? So we've
Wow,
never.
taking it personally.
We've never gotten there to a 5-year plan. So let's say we want to try to get to a 3-year plan. Will this 9.5 million be enough to get us through 3 years? Or should we as a town think about trying to do, whether it be investing differently or trying to go for a little bit more to help, I'm not a financial person, so what's y'all's opinion?
So, I mean, I think the honest answer is we don't know.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So
I
I think to reiterate what Nick has said, expenses like a particular contract, a
Right.
particular expense could rise 4% year over year. That's more than a tax levy would give us. So we need to find those funds elsewhere. I think the prudent thing to do with free cash, because it's one-time funds, is put it somewhere where you can use it as one-time funds when appropriate, right? So I think the answer here is by keeping it in that rainy day fund, which is invested as well as
We can.
we have been doing.
Okay.
I mean, it's been doing pretty well, yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
I mean,
not
the market has been doing pretty well. If the market does not do pretty well, we can't guarantee those local receipts would be as high in out years, right?
Okay.
So, so it's not a guarantee. And what we're talking about here is just maintaining level
Right, there's
service
there's
status
nothing else.
quo. All those needs are not met and would not be on the radar to be met, because I think we'd be first pulling from stabilization funds to fund that extra percentage on the contract, for
Right,
instance,
now I get it.
That's
So
my
they would
opinion.
sit on a list for however long? Because anything extra that we had would have to go in case there was, which, we saw in SPED that one year it went up 12%. So it could happen.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, I'm done, Mr. Chair, thank you.
And I
for
just pulled
that
up
time.
for folks, so the stabilization fund had interest income of about $400,000 over the course of fiscal '24 and $5 million. That was in it. So thanks to the treasurer for.
It's a pretty good rate.
It's a pretty good rate. Yeah, it's better than the savings account.
I'll take it. Ms. Bradley?
I have another question, but Mr. Cohen, yeah.
Mr. Cohen?
Just to clarify Ms. Musto's question, there is additional staff, though, in this level funded budget.
From fiscal '25 to fiscal '26, there would not be.
Fire department, nothing, there's no added staff
No.
anywhere? Okay.
That would be, once we get into the needs, that's where we would be pulling from. We've been able to add a few positions in the last couple of years, but they're primarily federally funded first. 2 examples of which are in the health department, there's now a community health social worker that was federally funded for year 1, was absorbed into the general fund budget in year 2. Down at the police department, there's a mental health clinician we're still using federal funds actually. And in the level service budget for '26 as proposed, the current year's budget starts to absorb that into the general fund. And then next year would be the first year it's fully funded by us. But that has been the case. Those are the 2 examples on the town side. Similar examples on the schools to a higher extent, but the same kind of idea where a year or 2 federally funded and then slowly absorbed into the general fund. That's where the new positions have come up over the past couple of years, but nothing incorporated in this budget today, other than what's existing today.
Mrs. Zoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now that we have our esteemed guests here, and it's still a question for you, Mr. Milano, but I'd love to hear their opinion
Love
about
it,
it
the
too.
guests.
So one thing that we had talked about previously is thinking about a position in town that would be funded that could do things like look for municipal grants, look for funding sources for towns. So a position that you would pay for, but that would pay for itself, and then some, ideally. As a fundraiser, I'm familiar with that kind of work. Have we thought about budgeting in for a position like that? I know other towns have folks that have that mandate, whether it's a part-time position or a full-time position. And I don't know, so I mentioned our guest because I'm not sure if would that sit in your office, would that sit in the treasurer's office, or is there, and you mentioned a treasurer position, is there a treasurer position that would result in more funding in for the town? Like, instead of looking at, I mean, trying to look at it the other way, like, are there other ways to increase revenue in over the next couple of years so that we have access to more funds?
I think that is typically a position that would be in like an administration office or an accounting office, and that might sometimes in the accounting office be more of a grant manager, less than a grant writer. I think complicating that is, first, MBTA Communities is just, that is the status quo right now, and there are a number of grant programs Milton's not eligible for, and we can't respond to a question like that without pointing that out, unfortunately. So that takes off the board for the near-term future, maybe not so long-term, but for now, that is a factor. I would also look at places where we would want to, if I'm prioritizing needs from an administration perspective, I think we need to invest first, and it's on the needs-based list, in human resources capabilities and functions in terms of, we have a single employee on the town side who handles HR, it's the HR director. We do have a payroll staff person in the treasurer's office, but there isn't that additional capacity to support employees through onboarding, for professional development, for employee wellness and culture. It's a focus of the schools as well, as I know the superintendent's been talking about HR support at that side. And then improving and bringing the town further into the 21st century, we do a lot of pen and paper in terms of accruals. You know, folks, you can't tell folks today what they have for vacation time and sick time. It's 2024, 2025, we should try to join that world. So there's things that we would like to invest in that I would prioritize over that. If MBTA Communities was a non-factor, maybe that changes a little bit, but I think that's one factor, and we're working to apply to a grant through Mass Save for a energy manager. They're encouraging regional applications, so we're working to find a regional partner to apply for that, but that would be a grant-funded position, not meant to be a long-term position, but meant to help you go access grants specifically around energy efficiency for both the municipality as well as residents.
I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
I mean, I guess the other thing, Nick had mentioned this before, but you know, I'm your treasurer and your collector. Monies that are invested with the town that earn interest income or investment income ultimately end up as on your local receipts item. So it's in all of our collective best interest for that to be as high as possible. So focusing there and having the time and diligence to focus there is would likely be of benefit to that top line. I need capacity to do that. I guess the other thing that I would say is then from the collector side of the house, any outstanding taxes that we have out there and we're actively trying to manage and collect on then come in under free cash. So we have to be diligent about that for lots of reasons, but I think that takes time and attention as well. So.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to piggyback on Mr. Milano's comments about bringing us into the
25th
current century. If we had some of these tools to automate some of these things, we realized some efficiencies in our manpower, and some of our manpower could then be redirected to do some of these other tasks. So I think it would be a win-win for the employees. They'd have things like their accrued PTO time on their pay stub, and we wouldn't be manually tracking this stuff. So we'd realize some efficiencies there. Not that would result in eliminating positions, but would then allow people that are doing these tasks to focus on other things that could help Joanna or I possibly do some of these other things like grants or
Yeah, and I think just
investing.
redirecting resources is always a good opportunity to just ensure that we retain talent as well and continue to build and develop and grow. So I think all the town departments are looking to do that, as I know the schools are too. So yeah.
Thank you.
So we're actively trying to manage that top number. Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
First, kudos to whoever's doing pencil and paper to figure out vacation time for the entire town. That person, whoever that is a hero.
Hometown hero.
Here's my question, and I guess I don't even know who to direct it to, so it's free for all. Let's say we decide as a board that we want to do a 9.5.
Try.
Okay.
It's gonna be hard, I'm just telling you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm worried about.
Okay.
I'm worried more about the long term. So if we say that we're gonna do a $9.5 million override, it goes through. But as we know, and we saw last year, the governor's numbers and the final budget numbers, two totally different things. And we ended up getting a lot more finances by the end of the budget. Could we take that money or whatever, I don't care what pilot comes from, could we take that money and put it in the stabilization fund? So let's say we get an additional $2 million from the state. We weren't planning on it. So now we're down to 7.5. But we had already passed and approved a 9.5. Can we take that $2 million, put it in the stabilization fund for what may need to happen in a year for this needs list? Or, I mean, like, is there a way that we can do this so that this needs list does not sit around for another decade?
That is, yes, if that were a scenario, there would be options to either appropriate into stabilization directly, or if it's unexpected revenues that we are made aware of after the budget's been set,
Okay.
those revenues would come into the town and then close out to free cash at the end of the year. But if it's part of state aid, then we know that's most likely a recurring source of revenue going forward. So in a subsequent year, it could be appropriate. It might mean a rosier revenue forecast going
Right.
forward. So the short answer is yes. The mechanics of it might be a little bit trickier.
Okay, that I understand. I just was curious. If we were to get better numbers from the state, and let's say it was only a differential of 7.5, would we change the override number if we were already locked into it?
It would depend on timing.
Okay.
Because that's our friends in the legislature take their time.
Yes,
to
they
the
do.
newest, one of the newer members. So, we'll
I'm
have
having rocks thrown at me.
the governor's budget will be
Yeah.
January. The House budget will be April.
Yep.
We won't have a final budget until well after any
May.
override vote, because that will be in June, just
Right.
because of the natural
The Senate
course of the
doesn't come out
process.
until
right.
May anyways.
Right. So it's after all of that.
Yeah.
So if it's state aid in that scenario, then
we wouldn't
that might
know.
be
Okay.
known after the fact.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
We good? Do I get a chance here? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm kidding. Go ahead. No, you know me, I was gonna laugh.
Mr. Milano, could you just bring up that chart again on the amounts and the dollar amount for people?
Yes.
I have a couple questions on that.
Sure.
The ones like if you went for 5 million, what the dollar amount is to people and, to the residents. I want to see what is different.
Good point, because it's very important.
And I kept going, but I kept it to one page, so I stopped at 10. But,
Can you enlarge it any?
yes.
I can look behind me.
What,
So my question is, you have a dollar amount. It's based on $1 million home. So you haven't broken it down per $100,000. It's per $1 million home, correct?
We have some $100,000 homes in this town. Where are
No,
they?
but we have,
Where are those?
I'm in.
no, but sometimes it's easier for people to calculate.
Just to do the math.
To do the math.
No,
I mean,
I
it's
know what you
easier
mean.
because it's easier for people to calculate that, right? With
Stay
their
tuned.
exact
We'll publish
totals.
the list at the end of tonight's meeting.
So that's what I meant by that. So
It'd be roughly about 10% of it.
It'll
right?
move in a similar percent range. So the percentage won't change because this is like a numbers exercise. So we're assuming nobody's value changes. We're assuming there's no new growth and above what we're saying. So all we're saying is if the levy goes up by 10%, the average house we expect to go up by 10%. In reality, we know some values will go up higher, some values will go up slower. So it's not going to equate to that. So this is just a round number estimate. So today, a $750,000 house in your example is about an $8,300 tax bill. So if it goes up in the same range as, so that'll go up $8,300 a year. So that would go up 10% again. So that would be at about $830 for the $9 million example in this scenario. So the percentages would be alike. It's just a matter of
The amount.
the amount would be different. And I can provide that just because it's easier to look at it. But I always just use the average because it's the number that the state puts out. And so anybody can find the same information if they went onto the state website and plug some of the same numbers as us.
So Mike, just to follow up.
Yeah, I'm following you. I want to, yep.
So my follow-up question really is, so in year one, if you pass an override, whatever, if it's the 9.5 or whatever you pass, it's X number of dollars. The next year, do we have a 5-year, to show what the first 5 years of that will be for somebody, for instance? Because I guess my concern is that it's an awful lot of money, and obviously we have the needs, but the question is it's a lot of money, and then this is assuming that nobody's house value changes in 5 years or whatever. And then
It's going to change. It's going to keep going up.
it's going to keep going
change.
up. And then you already know that you have, when the assessors came in, they explained how much it would be normally per year increase.
Like a 3%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I would like to see, for instance, in some of this, a projection for 5 years based on without your house increasing in value, what that would be. But we know that the houses always increase in value
So
because it shows it here.
it'll be another 3% on top of this a year for that duration.
So dollar amount, I want to see the hard numbers.
We can prepare that.
For
I just-
people.
yeah.
So I think the residents should see what the numbers are. 'Cause
And
those
to
are
be-
dollars, for
And
people.
to be clear, just to
Yeah.
kind of take that point home, it's the $9.5 million override. That is now a permanent increase in our taxing capacity. So
Right.
it stays
Right.
on in perpetuity until it's ever reduced. But
Right.
so just to yes, everybody's tax bill would go up by that amount in year one, and then that'll be the new floor. And now you should expect it to increase each year thereafter by the same percent as the tax bills normally go up
Right.
year over year.
Can I follow up
Bradley?
on
Sure.
Miss Musto? I'm sorry,
Oh, sorry,
Mr.
you good?
Chair.
Oh, why? Go ahead.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay. So on the very bottom here, it says every $1 million increase in the tax levy is approximately 112 increase to the average single-family home. So
Dollars.
Yeah.
Dollars, yeah.
I'm assuming, what are we basing an average single-family home on, just out of curiosity?
It's a million.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Oh, good, I'm under that. Okay, so just a little. So I just did some math, and what this actually breaks down to a month in a year is an $88 increase to your tax bill every month. So it's not, so when we look at these numbers and we start breaking it down, most people hover around the $1 million mark for the value of their home, right? Whatever our home is worth is always more than what it's assessed at. That's just the way real estate works. Thank you for that, whoever. But so if we think about this and we break it down to $88 a month, that's not
Just for this.
Per million.
Per million,
right,
just
how
for
many-
this,
right,
just
but
for
there's
this.
not that many people that have an over $1 million
No, per million
home.
of override.
No.
No.
$1 million house
No, if it's
value.
$88
Yeah, you added all
for the
that.
9.5 million?
Yes, yes.
right, because she's taken the $9.5 million scenario for the average house, which is about 1,060
Yep.
divided by 12, which
Okay.
is about the 90 bucks.
88.6.
Yeah.
is what it is. So that's
Yeah.
how I did the math.
Yep.
But not many people have an over $1 million home. I mean, there's definitely not just a handful in town, but you know, most of our houses are assessed at a lower value than what they would sell for, right? Everybody knows that. So our assessed value right now, I would say most average homes probably hover at around $1 million when you average everything out. That's $88 a month. So when you think of it that way, it's not like it's the end of the world. Is it going to be a strain? Yes. But the way I always look at this and the way I always have approached the dollars when it comes to impact on our neighbors is I look in whether or not I can do it. I'm a single mother. I make less than 6 figures a year. I have a kid in college. Thank God just did her last payment. But can I afford $88 a month? Probably. I could stop buying Starbucks all the time, but you know, there is a way to do it. So when you break it down and you start thinking about it in general to what we would have to give up if we didn't go for this amount, it's really staggering to me. So I just wanted to try and be a little bit more on the ground what this looks like for the average homeowner. And like I said, I make less than 6 figures. I have a house that's probably obsessed around $1 million. Can I make $88 work? Yes. Is it going to be a stretch for me? Yeah, it honestly is. But I can make it work because I want to make sure that we continue to have at least the same level of services that we currently have. So that's my 2 cents.
Quit smoking.
I don't smoke.
So you smoke?
No, I do not.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice? So give a little bit of homework here. So the largest over is, you were here in 2018, weren't you, Amy? Yeah, 2018, you were here. So I'm sitting here tonight, I'm looking out of the room, and I'm looking for faces like Sheila Varela, Jeff Cruikshanks, Betty White, Joe McGettrick, John Cronin, Leroy, people who've been on the front lines of so many overrides here over the past. And one of the reasons overrides have succeeded in this town since the first one, I think in 1985 or 86, was because we usually seek overrides when the overall quality of life or impact on the quality of life across the board. It can't just be schools, it can't be police, it can't just be fire, it can't be the libraries or town hall. It has to affect everyone. A $9.5 million override is unprecedented. It's $5.7 million more than we've ever achieved in the entire. In 2018, it was going to be $5.4 million, and we cut it back to $3.8 million because they want to pick a number. Mr. Milano talks about Braintree. Braintree was at 16.5 and wound up settling on an $8 million override because it was the only thing they thought they could. So I know for a paper exercise here, we talk about 9.7 million, like it's an easy thing to do. It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. I'm, like you and I talked, we went through different exercises the other day. Nick and I just like, what would 5 get? Because I was trying to keep it something close to where we've been. Because 2018 to 20, it's only 7 years. It's not like we jump. And we've always been, if you go 2018 to 2000, we've never had a jump of this significance in the history since we started having overrides almost 30 years ago. So the last thing in every override meeting I've ever been to, the last thing that every person that I just mentioned tonight ever talked about was, if you're going to have an override, you don't want to lose. Because if you lose, the hill you've described, the painting that I'm describing tonight, becomes that much more steep because the impact on your finances, your future, your bond rating, all of that comes into play. Even when we did the interviews for the MSBA on the site visit, the history of overrides was brought up and we painted that picture for them. So we don't have to make this decision tonight, but I do want to say I know that we're doing a paper exercise, and to Ms. Bradley's point, that $88 amount, there are people in this town who will not be able to pay it. And I'll describe to you a scenario that I watched 2 weeks ago at my brother's keeper. 2 days before Christmas Eve, I walked into the loading dock on this one morning, and the way the keeper to live is at Christmas, particularly at the holidays, is everything's in trash bags so that when you pull up, the trucks are unmarked. When you pull up to a house, no one really knows what's coming to the house. It's all inside, whether it's food, cold, whatever it is. It's in a 55-gallon trash bag. But on that morning, I walked in, and the entire loading dock, one whole bay, was completely covered. And I heard the dock foreman, the two crews were doing the deliveries. I did not know them, but I heard that he started reading out where they were going. And the entire load, which would have been well over 25 homes, coming to this town. And that's something we need to be cognizant of. And so, while we don't have to say tonight, ideally, I'd love to say, okay, we need 9.7, let's just go do it. That's a big friggin' hill to climb. That's not a hill, that's a mountain. And it will require all the departments. I mean, it will require across the board support, police, fire, library, schools, everyone. You can't just come in here like we saw a few months ago, come in beating a drum and say, let's vote. And if you look at historically, the overrides that have passed here, all of those years, the margin is very small margin. Like you don't win an override by 1,000 votes or 800, you win it by 200, so we have to think about that. And I've already said this, Nick knows where I'm at, and Ms. Bradley mentioned how long I've been here. That's the reality of what we're facing. And not to say that it isn't real, but into what many of the questions you asked, because I think I started at 5, I think I said with you, and I think you said to me, if we went for a $5 million override, you'd have to go again in 2 years. And to those who suggest you can do an override every 2 years, absolutely false. That's why we're 7 years out now. To Ms. Bradley's point about a $2 million windfall from the state, I'm looking. I'm looking. If it's there, I promise to snap it out of the air. But so I think we really need to. The one thing you did say, Nick, that I did like, that Braintree did do, and that's really for you guys, the leadership team, to figure out. If we did go for an amount near $9 million, to take a percent, to try and find a way to take a percentage of that and invest it towards, because we already know, looking down the road, we're going to be here in 27 looking for a significant debt exclusion override. Even though we were fortunate to get into MSBA, we are still going to have to fund our percentage of that. So that's another go back to so the 88 really compounds in this, and well, I probably won't be at this table then when that happens, but for the future of the town, the one thing that I can say to people out there is, the residents who live here now, whether they've lived here for a week or they lived here in 1986 or 7 when we had the first one, the one thing the overrides have done for this community is they've maintained a quality of life that you expect, whether it's the school system, the new schools, whether it's your dialing 911, whether you're coming in to use this building, whether you're going to use the library, whether it's town hall hours, whatever it is, it's maintained that. And so that's really all I'm going to say about this, but we need to really think about the reality of what will the community tolerate, and what can we as a community, because we as elected officials can't go. They'll have to form a PAC. Every override we've ever had we've had a political action committee. They'll have to have a PAC that's diverse, and I don't mean diverse just in thinking, that's diverse, that has representation for all the aspects of this town, that can go out and convince someone with that $88 is really a difference between, can I buy dinner today or can I not? Really, really an important thing. So that's all. We need to think about it. It's really good. I'm sorry.
I just have a quick question for you, Mr. Chair, actually. Admittedly, I was not on this board. I have voted for overrides in Milton in the past, not
as a voter.
As a voter. Yeah. So when you talk about scaling back previous override dollar amounts, my understanding is at this point, if we scaled back the dollar amount, we would be cutting services.
So that's how overrides. So if you go back, and here's a little thing you could all go back and do tonight. If you go back to 28, Google the overrides in Milton, and we'll kind of paint a picture of what the voters were facing. In every override that I have ever seen in this town, you are saving, X amount of teachers, X amount of police officers, town hall, the mental health. That's what,
right.
As one longtime resident who's been very involved in this town for many years described it to me and I heard it, many described it as, you are protecting the food, the essentials that are on your plate, the meat, and it could be, the meat, the potatoes, and the vegetables.
Could be a soybean.
Whatever, there's no extra.
Yes.
There's no dessert, there's no a la carte to come in residents are smart. They're never going to vote an override to give you more than you have today.
But would they
They're going
vote for an override that they would end up with less than they had before the override? I guess that's my question, because
Google and do some research. Overrides are to protect services, and I've never
Braintree.
seen an override yet. Well, that's why Braintree, if Braintree had gone for 16, but they had no history of overrides, and they have a much bigger commercial base than we
Yeah.
do, and they came up with a number of 8.5 is what they thought the residents could tolerate, and that's what they went for. And there was, as the chief there and I are very close, and at the time, the mayor's chief, they were holding their breath because they weren't sure whether or not they could achieve it. So that's, and I don't mean to say it believe me, I'm just one person, and I sit here today with the privilege of the history of being here in the past and just seeing how hard I can remember. I never really knew Jeff Cruikshanks, who chaired the warrant committee, chaired the school committee for a long time. I never knew him that well. He wound up chairing, I think, the 2009 override. And I can remember how hard it was. And I can remember coming out of my house the day after when he was sitting in my driveway with a bottle of wine and with this big grin, because the two of us the day before were so worried on the day before the vote. And the residents that came out and worked, and that override worked so hard for so long to get to that goal. And it's just, it's harder than a political election. It really is. It's very, very hard.
When do we have to decide?
Go ahead, and so I was going to say that, so good question. But it's not tonight.
No, it's not tonight, but
Chair
I'm just
Carroll's
curious.
watching tonight. I told her, I said, we're not deciding tonight, so.
Ideally, by the end of this month,
The
whether
end of
that
this month.
takes the select board meeting twice to do that, or it's the first week of February, I think that would be the last.
The drop dead.
Yeah, and so if there's information you need, information you're looking for myself or from the school department, please let me know. If there's anything that you need to help make your decision. The other thing just to think about would be timing of the ballot question vote. Typically in Milton, they've occurred after the town meeting.
Not on the town
It doesn't
election, yeah.
need to happen on the town election, it certainly can, and it is no longer as cheap as it once was to run a town election with all the vote by mail.
Yeah.
The special election for MBTA communities was upwards of $55,000. So if there's an interest in avoiding that cost, the ballot question could be on the annual town election, but again, the rhythm is typically town meeting and then a ballot question vote, but at Belmont, I think last year did it in that sequence of election first, then town meeting, so.
is there a state primary vote?
That's a presidential year.
Yeah. None of that.
So it's basically not until after town, you'd have to have a special election.
Yeah, the next election is,
There wouldn't be one in November
there's
either.
just two town elections, so the next two elections, I think.
The next.
Yeah.
April of 25
April
and
So
20.
we've
April
got
26.
April. We
Yeah.
got April, and then
Do you have one? Then do you have historically, I think we've done it by itself, I think.
Correct,
Am I
that's
right?
Yeah.
the case, yeah.
yeah, we've always done it by.
Yeah.
I mean, since I've been here.
So
they've been
if it's
separate.
okay with the members, and I think it would probably behoove us to help us in our decision, whatever number we come up with, is probably the next meeting. Limit it, we want to limit it to like 10 minutes each on the town side, whatever department heads you want to bring, whether it's Chief King, Chief Madden, Marina, maybe the library, Christine, who, on the town side to kind of paint the picture of the importance there, and also Dr. Burrows and his team to kind of paint that picture. Because I think, we're talking, we're showing spreadsheets and numbers going back, and I'm not an expert on this, but I think the human aspect of it is critical. I think there are people I think people need to hear it. So if we can schedule that, maybe we can do the whole thing within like 45 minutes and do that at our next meeting. That okay?
That works.
Okay.
Sure.
You okay, kids? You want to go home? I call you kids because you're to me, I'm freaking an old man. First off, no. So, any further questions for our esteemed financial leadership team?
Thank you for all your
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you both for coming out on this freezing cold night. If I had a bottle of wine, I'd give it to you both. You can go. I don't have one, but and thank you for everything you do. On behalf of all of us and everyone who's involved in this town, it's not easy what you do to make the X's and O's match and work and pay the bills. So thank you for that. Thank you for all your help, and your staffs as well. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we? Item number 5, discussion, approval, update, special town meeting, February 24th, 25A, special town meeting articles. Do you need to talk first? You want me to just go? Are you good?
Yeah, if you want me to go summarize.
Yeah, go ahead.
them.
You can do it. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you summarize and then we'll go. Oh, yeah, so I meant to, can I have a motion to reopen the, good point, very good. I had wrote
Everybody on
myself
the
a
notes
note too.
tonight.
I wrote myself a note. Can I have a motion to open the warrant?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Second. Second by Ms. Musto. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's a roll call, it's no roll call vote tonight. Okay, we are now open. Okay, so, Mr. Milano. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you.
So Roman numeral 1 is the appropriation for feasibility study with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. This warrant article was voted upon by the School Building Committee, subject to Town Council and the MSBA's form of vote and form of article. This article that was in the packet reflects the MSBA's vote criteria. They are very much sticklers for vote language and warrant article language, so we took their drafts, submitted the project scope for Milton, the project school, which is the Cunningham School, which is the school we submitted the statement of interest for, and the location, and then otherwise tracked exactly to the MSBA's vote language. The School Building Committee's recommendation was $1.5 million for this feasibility study. Looking at some recent middle school projects, their feasibility studies ran in the range of 1.2 to 1.3. So it seems an appropriate amount to request. And just as a reminder, all feasibility study expenses are reimbursable. So the town will get reimbursed for 45%-ish of its expenses in the feasibility study. So we'll never need to spend the full 1.5 million. However, the town
Can you
meeting
give
does.
the remainder to Ms. Musto, to Ms. Bradley to put, and Ms. Musto to put towards the operating budget?
So we need to appropriate it, but we won't necessarily ever spend 1.5 million of town funds on this. And the proposal is to have it be borrowing, since if a project is approved, it can be rolled into that project. So anyway, it tracks with the MSBA vote language. It's $1.5 million is recommended by the School Building Committee. This vote language has been reviewed by the MSBA, so they're comfortable with this language. Any changes or amendments to the language or to even to the motion at town meeting would need MSBA's sign off before it takes place. So that's the first one. Do you want me to go one by one?
Do
if there are
we want
questions
to
or-
vote on them?
No, let's do the first one first, Mr. Cohen.
I have
Then we'll
questions.
vote one by
Yeah,
one.
okay, thank you.
I've done a lot of homework. The MSBA site is great. And my understanding is that it's not until the end of this eligibility phase that we need to have this.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to take a breath. That's all, And I did also look at other schools, and I don't want to shortchange us right out of the gate, but I did. Again, the site is great, and the feasibility study ranges from 750 to, there were two of them, Norwood and one other one that were close to our size that were the 1.5, and then you had Brookline that was 2 million or something like that, but it was a huge project. So it's on the higher end, this 1.5 in this time of watching money. And yes, we will get it back as long as we make it to the next phases. We don't make it to the next phases, this money's expended and we don't get it back.
No, we'll get reimbursed for any expenses that.
Whether we make it beyond
If it's
or
a
not.
failed vote, they'll reimburse us for the feasibility study and
Yeah.
say, thank you, see you later.
See you
But
later.
we'll get the
Okay.
reimbursement, but we won't get anything more. after
Okay,
that.
okay.
That was clearly outlined in
Okay.
the award meeting, that you'll get your feasibility money, but nothing else.
Okay. And again, because I read things, you read things after the fact and you read things differently. And in here, and I know this is their language, so I believe it is their assumption that when they say under the direction of the school building committee, they mean the school building committee formulated for this.
They just mean, in that case, it's, so kind of take it step by step. First, The under the direction of is up to how the town wants it to be spent. And for the fire station projects, for example, it's under the direction of the fire station building committee. So in this case, we kept their language with the school building committee. And in Milton's case, we have a school building committee. So this appropriation is authorizing Milton's school building committee to expend the funds.
That needs to be clarified, because in their website, it talks about permanent building committees and school building committees, and how that has to, also this committee has to be formed, and some of the members can come from that. So I think that needs to be clarified, because I think,
Did they already sign off on this?
Yes.
Thank you.
well, I need to clarify it then.
Yeah.
You know,
Because they're.
No, I
fine.
get what you're saying, but
I know.
I
I know.
So it's while it has to comply with the MSBA requirements, it's still an appropriation vote and it's a local action.
Correct.
So
So
we
yes-
could put in there
Go ahead.
under the direction of the select board, and that would be fine, and it would
it
not
wouldn't.
have to comply. Well, right,
Yeah,
but
no, it wouldn't. No.
so it wouldn't have to meet any other requirements. As long as Milton has a school building committee, and Milton's town meeting is authorizing that said school building committee to spend these funds, then that's all that has to happen. In order to participate with the MSBA, we need our school building committee to meet the MSBA's requirements, but that doesn't affect this appropriation here.
You looking for an amendment to the, are you looking for an amendment to the article, like amending the language somewhat?
I know this is theirs, but everything is from a frame of mind, and from their frame of mind, they're talking about their school building committee.
Well, let's play out a scenario that wouldn't happen just to explain what this appropriation would mean. So let's say town meeting votes this. Something crazy happens, February 25th, we get a letter from the MSBA said, hey, thanks, but actually we're kicking you out of the program. This appropriation would still be an illegal appropriation. The Milton School Building Committee would still be authorized to expend it because it's a local appropriation and a local vote taken by the Milton Town Meeting. The School Building Committee, in order to participate with MSBA, needs to meet certain requirements, but if the town meeting votes to authorize the School Building Committee to spend funds, it means whatever school building committee is in existence in Milton, whether it's amended subsequently or not. It's just identifying a border committee that currently exists in Milton today to expend these funds.
Do you want it to be, are you suggesting it should be someone else other than the school
No,
building?
I'm suggesting that it should state specifically under the direction of the school building committee approved by MSBA.
But they don't technically, I hear what you're saying, they don't technically approve the MSBA, the school building committee, because they wouldn't say, hey, that person can't be on it. They just say,
We're in
this
compliance.
meets the state's regulations.
They
So
do actually approve the school building committee. As part of that process, there's a form we have
that
to fill
the
out.
members meet the regulations, correct?
Right, and it becomes the school building committee.
So long as we've submitted a school building committee that's in compliance, though, they wouldn't turn it down. So as
Correct.
long as we
No,
don't.
but in the end, they have to approve it, and it becomes the school building committee in their eyes.
But the town currently has a school building committee that was appointed by the moderator.
Right, it's
that
not,
can
it's
be-
not our
it's not-
appointment.
It's not even
our
ours.
appointment.
Yeah.
It's the moderator.
moderator.
I know.
Question?
There's-
You raising your
No,
hand?
yes, but let them finish.
I just
please.
also, can I just point out just a parliamentary procedural item here? What we're talking about, and is the motion that would be before town meeting. That is typically the warrant committee's recommendation. It doesn't need to be decided today in this room. What this board is asked to accept is just the article language.
Right.
And so if there are questions about the recommendation and how to structure that recommendation and work with MSBA to make a couple of tweaks to that recommendation, if that's the will of this board, then that can be done anytime between now and February 24th.
Yeah, I'm not.
So, no, I just wanted,
yeah.
just in terms of
No,
timeline and
no,
expectations.
it can be done. No, I agree. But there is a form. I mean, there's a school building committee form you fill out, and this becomes the school building committee from
That's-
MSBA.
But that's not for us to fill out.
Yeah, it is.
The select board?
No, the town.
No.
No, the town.
I get that.
The
No, I
town.
get that.
The town.
So I
Yes.
just want to,
Okay.
good, you have a question for us? No.
I do, no,
Because I
no.
don't have a question, I have a statement, so go ahead. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to Mr. Cohane's point, I guess it sounds like maybe what you're thinking of, just listening here, is that maybe what you're thinking of under the direction of the MSBA formed school building committee or something like that. I think the thought, from what I'm hearing right now, seems like a good point, because two things I wanted to ask. I know you said that we would definitely get reimbursed, for instance, on the money, correct?
The feasibility.
For eligible
Yes.
expenses under the feasibility study.
Okay. That's just, what if we don't make it to the next round?
It doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
matter.
So
We
right
already asked
now,
that. He asked
That was the,
Doesn't matter.
excuse me, can I just ask
Right,
the
but,
question?
but that's, we've already answered this.
I'm just trying to confirm
Go ahead,
something.
go ahead, go ahead. All right, go
Okay.
ahead. Go
What's
ahead.
to look for?
The look
All right,
is
go
for
ahead,
the
go
fact
ahead.
that, the look is for the fact, Roxanne, that we just had this question.
I'm trying
He
to
just said
clarify
it.
something.
Okay.
Please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify that point, that it will get reimbursed. At that-
Eligible expenses
will
under
get
the feasibility
reimbursed.
study would be reimbursed.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the question I have too about this is the way that it's written, it sounds like from what you just told us that if something happened tomorrow, that the funds could still be expended by the current school committee. School building committee, I'm sorry, yes, for feasibility.
This is a legal appropriation, so if the expenses were a legal expenditure under this appropriation,
Right.
then yes.
Then they could.
But the intention is obviously clear with the language that it's done so for the grants for the MSBA.
It's also,
because it's specifically around the elementary or middle school project for the Cunningham School.
Go ahead. Wait a minute, let her finish.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go, no, go ahead, no, it's all right, go ahead.
feasibility, could you explain what is included for people that are watching in a feasibility study?
Yes, the
And what's
feasibility
not
study
included,
is,
yeah.
so there are 3 reports that the town will have to complete as part of the feasibility study phase, a preliminary design program, which is like the initial first draft of all the options that the town wants to consider. Preferred schematic report, which further analyzes all the options that the town studies and then identifies its preferred solution for the school project. And then the schematic design report is the third and final submittal under the feasibility study, and that is the design of the school to a schematic design level with cost estimates. That report, that design, that cost estimate is what goes to the voters for their vote. So that's, and included in all that would be, wetland delineation and flagging, site studies, traffic studies, geotechnical reports. It's all that initial investigatory process that helps the architects design the building and design all the infrastructure related so you can get an accurate cost estimate.
And as a follow-up, so this really can't start before May 1st, correct? In terms of
well,
actual,
The appropriation is actually for, so the first phase are now, this is, sorry for the bureaucratic process that
I was
MSBA
going to
does.
go through it too, but you can.
So we are in eligibility period, we're not spending any money. We are just we're getting the appropriation, we're forming the
right.
school building committee, we're doing homework with MSBA, we're settling on the parameters of what we will study for a grade configuration. We're agreeing on how many students would be in said school designs. Then we go into feasibility study. The first step in feasibility study is to procure an owner's project manager. Still not spending any money. The second step is to procure a designer. Our OPM would help us with that. That's when the first cost would start, is going through designer procurement to get that out the door. We get an architect on board, then we start studying. So the $1.5 million has to be appropriated before the end of eligibility period, but no dollars would be spent on it until after the first step of the feasibility study, if that makes sense at all.
Very clear.
so yes, and just to clarify one more thing in terms of dates, what are we talking for these phases?
I think eligibility period is expected to go till November. I think it's longer than that, right? Into next
I looked
year.
up other,
Yeah,
other towns.
I don't know the exact dates. but it's-
November's the best case.
Yeah, November, end of the calendar year where we start owner's project manager procurement. And so I would not expect to see any funds spent out of this appropriation until calendar year 26 at the earliest, really. Yeah, early
Yeah,
calendar year
first
26.
quarter, end of first quarter or something, right?
Okay,
Something like that.
okay, thank you.
And one
Go
more
ahead.
So to that, then, another thing I would like to add is, because there's no reason not to, but we don't want to spend the money if we don't know we're going forward, and I know we'll get half of it, but we won't spend any of it until we are invited into the feasibility study phase by the MSBA board. That's the module 3. And so I'd like to have added here, and I guess we can do that between now and the next time, just language that says that no funds are expended until we're invited into the feasibility
Procedural
study.
question.
It's a procedure. I don't think they
Select
let us do
board-
that.
So that is really, it depends on what the warrant committees, the recommendation language here in bold, that's the warrant committees, typically. Now,
This draft motion is from
the
the
draft
warrant?
motion is what the warrant committee will recommend, because in the warrant, if you picture the warrant, it's the article. The article is what was submitted by the school building committee, and that's what this board is approving to be included in the warrant. Then, in the warrant report, the warrant.
So basically, then I'm saying I'm not approving it because I want these changes. Is that the bottom line for me?
Well, it's not really what we're asking you, whether you approve or disapprove right now. The only question that this board is being asked today is, do we want this article in the warrant or not?
Oh, okay.
And
Because
if
the
you
school
have-
building committee wants this language, and so,
Which has been
approved, and so
By the
we just,
MSBA.
Right.
By
And have to go
MSBA.
back
Correct.
to the
Right.
MSBA.
So
There were
if,
changes to
if
it.
the members of the warrant committee agree with you, maybe they'll work that into their recommendation. We'll have to see if the MSBA approves it.
Okay.
Alternatively, this board could make a motion at town meeting,
Okay.
say, the warrant committee recommendation is X, we suggest Y.
Okay.
And so there's a couple of different avenues. It's not now before it goes into the warrant.
like many of these things, it's very rare. I mean, it happens, but a lot of times there's a change or a warrant committee
Between now and,
between now and town meeting.
And just to be clear, it sounds like both of you would rather this be expended by the new school building committee. That's what I'm gathering.
Which
That you
it could-
guys don't
yeah.
like the setup of what is currently,
They can't-
because both of you have raised the same thing. So I just want to make sure.
no, my understanding is they are very rigid, MSBA.
Yeah.
They are.
But
And
that's
so
why
I don't
they
wanna-
agreed to that language.
I agree, but different people that are writing it from different angles, when they say school building committee, they may mean the school building committee that was formed by them. I'm just saying.
No, I understand
we
that,
should
John,
clarify it.
but if the MSB is what you're worried about, right? And they approve this language, can you walk me through your thinking on why they wouldn't approve it if they just approved it? Why they would interpret it any differently than what they just approved?
We're the ones misinterpreting it, not them.
I'm not misinterpreting it.
What are we missing?
What do you
What are we misinterpreting?
You're interpreting this to be the school building committee as formed right now.
No, I'm interpreting it to be whenever we go to spend the money, whatever school building committee is around.
Yeah, because it's not going to be
Because
spent
it's not going to be spent for a while.
until,
Yeah,
for
the-
months.
So the existing
Yeah.
school building committee, the one that you sit on right now,
Yep.
can do nothing with this.
Right.
Nothing. If you wanted to have a meeting, call a meeting tomorrow and try and do something with this, you could do
As
nothing with
long as
it.
that's clear.
Nothing.
As long as
It's
that's
clear
clear.
to So if it's not clear
All right,
to
hold on,
you,
hold on. Let's keep things in order here. Let's hold on.
I'm raising my hand.
I know. So you're in line. She's got her.
A minute ago,
It's a free-for-all
Nick
here.
said that this is not
Correct. I
the
did.
school committee formed by the MSBA.
I think it sounds like what
No, but there's no money. There's
That's
no
what-
money. There's no money. There's no.
February 25th there will be. And I think
Right.
if I'm interpreting what you're looking for perhaps is something like, provided that no funds will be expended until the town enters feasibility study. Or something like that says,
Can you write that down? So why don't you
Yeah,
do me a
that's what
favor?
it's-
Why don't you write that down? And why
Funds
don't I-
shall
why-
not be
hold on,
expended
hold on.
until the town is formally invited into the feasibility stage
Here
by
we
the
are.
MSBA board.
So hold on one sec.
Sorry.
I'm going to have him ask them. All right, that okay with you? With
What's that?
I'm going to have Nick, and I'll come back to you. I'm going to have Nick
Okay.
run this by them. That all right with you? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Musto.
Thank you. I think,
Then I'll come to you.
to assume what I'm thinking or why I said what I said, when I look at that, and after, Mr. Milano's comments, I just want to ensure that when you have a new committee, that you'd want the new committee, which is the old committee and additional members, if we get to the feasibility, that's who should be doing it. And that's my point. So that's what I'm saying. But as to Mr. Milano's point, if for some reason we got kicked out at some point,
Right.
we don't have that other committee. It would go to the original committee, and that's what I'm saying. And they can,
No, and that's what I think the
original committee's
mix-up is.
No, you
No.
said the original committee exists?
yeah.
Well, there's a
No.
current
Yeah.
committee,
There's a
but once it
current
gets
committee.
changed, then it's.
But
That's
they
February
can't spend
25th.
the
Right,
money.
that's February 25th,
No,
the
but
day
it-
after town meeting.
But you had mentioned something.
I was
Earlier.
using an example and I feel like I've confused folks
Yes,
more than I
you
meant
ha-
to.
thank
So
you.
what I did is
They can't spend it.
I plugged in that language I suggested, that if the warrant committee accepts it, could in theory be included, which just says that the town will appropriate the money at the special town meeting. However, funds can't be spent from it until after the town and the MSBA execute a feasibility study agreement.
Can I ask a
What's wrong
question?
with
Can
that?
we all live with that?
That sounds
Can we
fine.
all live with that?
That's fine.
Can you live with that?
Yeah.
My question is,
All right, go ahead with your question.
so
Hold on,
I
hold on.
actually just have a question for Mr. Cohen. This was submitted by the school building committee, right? So did you
We
participate?
haven't met,
Did you participate and vote on this?
I haven't been, they didn't give me these.
No.
Okay, so how did this come to us if the school building committee didn't vote on the language?
I don't think they did.
They voted without like actually having the document. I've been asking for it.
Okay, that
All
was
right.
just a process question.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
So, final. So I just summary and then, so we okay with him adding that?
Yeah.
You're good, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if MSB,
Yeah.
if MSB
Yay.
is. So- And I just want to get in, and I just
Yeah.
want to reiterate how hard this was. There are many people, and let's go back to, it was a lot warmer, not too many months ago, that people were banging on us, 190. Listen, this was hard. 47 communities applied this year, only 22 were selected. We are one of the 22. This is a huge benefit for the town, and everything that I've seen from them just on my short time so far, in this new role, they've been awesome. So this is a real gift to, I think
Totally
you said it,
agree.
no one,
Yeah.
I mean, including me, and
Nobody
I'm,
thought this was happening.
so, okay.
Yeah.
But
it
we also
feels like
don't
we're
want to make
arguing
them
over.
upset.
I'm with you. I don't like, because
I don't-
that's
I'm
one of the
agreeing
things
with
that
you, Mr. Chair.
one of the things that they
I'm
look
agreeing with the
for.
chair.
One of the things, and you and I've talked about this, and you came from there. One of the things that they clearly look for is local support. They don't want to see you, they don't want to welcome you into this program and go through all the exercise and all the time and make the financial commitment to have you vote no.
Right.
You know, they don't want that to see it fail. They don't. Go ahead.
So to that point, Mr. Chair, this language has already been approved by MSBA. I worry a bit that if we're already sort of tweaking language about how do we spend 1.5 million in a way that it's obvious that it can't be spent this way otherwise.
I'm not tweaking. I'm just letting him. I'm okay and letting him ask the question. That's fine.
Okay,
I'm
so
okay with the question.
Because I honestly don't know that that's, like, I think the school building committee has done a fantastic job to get us to this point. And if it starts to look like we're going to start nitpicking
I agree.
individual
Yeah, I agree too.
amendments,
I agree.
it's not
I
going to
agree
look
too.
great. So I would actually not be in favor of changing the language. I think it's okay to ask maybe
okay with that.
the
I'm okay with that.
clarification
I'm okay with
question.
that too.
I'm
But
okay
I
with
wouldn't
that.
change the language. And then if you come back and you say that the clarification is that they could actually spend the money on, March 1st, it could, then we can decide whether we want to change the language around. But they can't.
They can't.
So the answer comes back that they can't do it until the time which you said that they've already told us that they can't spend it to. I think it would behoove us to take the language that was already been approved by MSBA. Let's look like a nice, happy, unified town here and use the language that we've already agreed to and the school building committee's already given us.
Mr. Chair.
Just my thoughts, Mr.
I
Chair.
get that. I get that.
Mr. Chair,
Ms.
I'd
Bradley.
like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve little I, the appropriation for a feasibility study with the Massachusetts School Building Authority for the special town meeting warrant dated February 24th, 2025.
As amended or not as amended?
Not as amended.
I second.
No, I'm okay.
It's just a
Can we just
procedural
Hold on,
point.
hold
The
on, yeah, let's
article
go.
itself would have no amendment anyway, because
Right.
Yeah, the
You
article.
can't.
Yeah. So
the
that's
article
why
itself
we're not
is-
amending the
Right.
article. I think we should all be together with asking the question. Asking questions are fine.
Yeah, ask questions.
This isn't a fatal question. I'm okay with it. So
But we're not amending it anyways.
that's why. So I'm going to ask you. Let's just go back to your motion without an amendment.
I didn't put
If
the
he
amendment
asks
in.
it, no, you said you asked.
I just
it.
know I said,
We're
was it
amending
not amended? And she said,
Could we
yes,
do
not
it next
amended.
time after he finds out the answer?
If we
But
had to.
we
if
don't-
had
we
to.
can't
We can
amend it.
reopen the warrant. We can always reopen
can
the
always-
warrant.
No,
But
he's
we can
going to
do
find
it
out
at
the
the-
answer. Let him
we can
find
do it
out
at
the
our meeting,
answer.
too.
There's no
Okay.
harm.
Let's get something passed here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we get, you're right.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Opposed.
You're opposed, so
Ms. Munsell, you
well-
were in favor?
are you voting?
I want to find out the answer before we vote on it, so
you're
I'm going to be opposed.
Okay.
Yeah, until we get the
3
answer.
to 2.
That's
The
fine.
article
Okay.
is in the warrant. I'll follow up once I get an answer
Okay.
in terms
If-
of the recommendation language.
If you come back and you think, I'm more than happy to
Then
put it back on
fine,
the option.
then I'm
Okay.
fine. I just want the answer.
It can be a green sheet.
Okay, item number, oh my God, kill me. Amendments, I'm afraid to go to this one. Amendment to the school building committee established by the February 2019 special town meeting, and Mr. Milano to paint this picture.
Sure. So as we were just speaking about the school building committee, that as it currently exists would not meet the MSBA's regulations. The school committee has reviewed and approved this warrant article, which would add 6 non-voting positions to the school building committee to round out the school building committee from what is required to meet its regulations. So that's the superintendent of schools. It's my position. It's the director of consolidated facilities. It's an individual that's certified for MCPO, which is a procurement certification, which both the assistant town administrator and the assistant superintendent, Katie Blake, have. The MSBA requires that the Cunningham school principal is on this
Right.
school building committee. And there's also a slot for a local budget official, which would be a staff position under the way that this is envisioned from how I'm reading it. Each of those positions they recommend be non-voting positions that they serve on and participate in the school building committee, but they not actually have a cast of votes. Just let the votes be the Milton residents who are serving on the school building committee.
So do you think the article should, at least whether it's in the notes or in the, at least kind of clarify who's voting and who's non-voting?
It could include, yeah, so it could say 5 members appointed by the town moderator voting, 2 members appointed by the school committee voting, 2 members appointed by the select board voting. I think that could be.
And then
because
the others non-voting.
correct.
Because this is an amendment to an existing.
Yes,
So,
yes. This is
so
a
if you
required
looked at it,
amendment.
if
This
you
is a
looked at the
required
whole
amendment.
thing,
This-
what
yeah,
was
this is required.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the original doesn't say
I
anything
know,
about
so
voting.
can we live with
Yeah.
that? Can we live with that suggestion?
Sure.
I can,
Okay.
yeah, I can, in this case, we are controlling the article, so
Second
Yeah.
point, who's staffing this?
right now,
Someone
right
has
now
to
it's mostly
staff
Sean
this,
that
right?
does the work.
Who? I'm sorry.
Sean
Staff
O'Rourke.
it, someone has
Sean.
to staff it though,
From the
like
town
at this
side.
level?
He's not being paid.
The schools can
No, that's
staff
what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's
Yes.
not, so this isn't
Schools.
staff, is your committee staffed by an employee?
No.
Wow.
There's a couple of school committee members, and then Sean does a lot of the agenda prep and
Yeah,
minutes and all that.
Sean.
Or the I'm sorry, the owner's project manager
Yeah.
manages minutes. And
Similar
that
to the
kind of
fire
stuff.
station
Correct,
building committee,
right.
okay,
That's-
same, it's very
that's
similar,
the right
okay,
answer.
I got it, okay. So someone paid is staffing it, it's just not a town employee, it's like.
Until
paid
we,
by the town,
yeah,
but-
Okay.
once we're rolling with MSBA, they won't have a lot of meetings over the next year, and they won't really meet until an OPM is on board. So
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, can I make a motion
Yes.
to approve the?
we're done talking, go ahead.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the article, little I, Roman numeral, lowercase 2, I guess.
Yeah.
Amendment to the school building committee established by the February 19th, 2019 special town meeting, as with amendment suggested by the chair to identify current voting members.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are we unanimous, Mr.
Yes.
Coyne? Well,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's unanimous. Wow. Okay. Item number 3, home rule petition to establish a senior means tested property tax exemption. Mr. Milano, we know, we already know about this, but go ahead, quick.
So yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're going to be done by 9.
So this is the one we've talked about a few times that would result in a local tax exemption for seniors in Milton who meet the criteria. The main criteria we're tracking is the state income circuit breaker for senior citizens, which so essentially, if you get an income tax credit as a senior and you prove it locally, then you would be eligible for a local match accordingly. One thing that has been discussed, one item of discussion has been what should the match be? Communities have ranges of matches between 100% match of the state credit or a smaller portion. The match is, in this language, set to be between 50% of the state credit
You sure?
up to 100% of the state credit. But it would be set by the select board at a later date. So it gives the select board the authority to set a match anywhere between 50 and 100% of the amount of circuit breaker income tax credit, but does not need to be set at this point. And one thing I will note is that in the tax bill that was approved by the legislature last year, they doubled they didn't quite double, but they significantly increased this tax credit. So what had been about a $1,700 max tax credit is now, I think, close to $2,700.
That's
So
correct.
it's a nice bump. And some of the communities that had higher matches are now evaluating where they want their match to be since the tax credit went up. So it's something that we can square away if this is approved by town meeting and approved by the legislature as well.
So we would approve this at town meeting, not with a percentage.
Correct.
Then it goes to the legislature. It's a home rule petition, right?
Yep. So in order for it to be effective for fiscal year 26 tax bills, it would need to probably be approved by the legislature by May, June timeframe, which might be tricky just with the new session and everything. But
Well, we know a guy.
Yeah.
And the good thing is we're copy and pasting
Kill me.
a home rule petition that has been done
Right.
numerous times before.
Home
However,
rules go through informal, they can,
yeah.
they go through.
So, but I just don't want, it's no guarantee that it would be in effect for fiscal 26, and we would have to then advertise the program right away. Applications would have to be due by the end of August timeframe for us to be able to operate it for fiscal 26.
So this board or you, who would determine the percentage after the law is passed?
This select board.
Okay. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Article I3 for inclusion in the special town meeting warrant dated February 24, 2025, home rule petition to establish a senior means tested property tax exemption.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Musto. Conversation, discussion. Comment? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're good. Unanimous. Okay. Item number 4, I-V5, zoning bylaw amendment regarding the new state accessory dwelling units.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The planning board met last night. We do not have draft language at this time.
Should we defer this
they-
until the next meeting?
I think we will need to.
Okay.
I'll just note that the state regulations around ADUs, I distributed some information to this board, and we've shared some information with the planning board as well, really sets the parameters of what local entities can regulate further for accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units will be permitted as of right in Milton starting February 2nd or February 6th. And there are really no other parameters on them until and unless Milton amends its bylaws to establish some parameters on them. The kind of bottom line of what the state is saying is regulate ADUs just as you would regulate a single family home. Don't go beyond that. Don't try to go beyond that.
Aren't they trying to kind of go outside of that? Or be less restrictive than what we do in singles? I thought I
They're
saw that on
setting the
HLC.
maximum restriction as don't be more restrictive than a single family, but they are also setting guidelines and parameters within that might further restrict what cities and towns can do in terms of regulating these. The state's goal is to have a lot of ADUs developed. So that is where they're starting up from.
Can I ask
Go ahead.
just a weird question on this?
Absolutely.
So when this passes February, what did you say, 5th or 6th or whatever?
It comes along.
And until we do if the planning board gets this to us and it goes through on the 25th, it can be a free-for-all for that 20 days.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we expect that many applications in the first 20 days?
They're
Giddy
not
up.
cheap to build. So
Right.
like,
And cost is in play.
Pre-made.
so it's
Some of those pre-made ones are gorgeous.
Pre-made ADUs?
Yeah, you like little apartments, you just and then you just do a little connection.
the other thing to keep in mind is the single family zoning in Milton is restrictive now. So like
Right.
the lot size requirements,
The setbacks and everything.
Right, the
setbacks.
setbacks, all
Yeah,
that stuff,
There
right.
is some restrictions that are somewhat in place.
So
but
that would still
Inside.
be in place
for the most part.
for the most part. Okay.
So long as your
just checking.
ADU fit in the current. Can I ask a quick question too, Mr.
Sure.
Chair? Do we know, so if this passes, has any community or have we done any projection on taxes? Like I'm assuming that this would result in a tax increase because you'd have more taxpayers?
No tax decrease.
Or tax decrease for, tax increase for the town in terms of revenue, tax potential decrease, and also ADUs tend to not have children, so they tend to not be in
it's-
terms of demands?
We've been talking about it, the assessor and I were chatting about it. It'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out, because if you take a 4-bedroom colonial, that's 2,000 square feet, and now it's a 2-bedroom colonial, that's 1,200 square foot, and now it has an accessory dwelling unit, it's that 800 square feet and 2 bedrooms. Like,
the same
there,
size.
that main house may be less valuable, but the new unit would be new growth because it's a new unit and newly arriving on the tax bill. So that'll feed into new growth.
Interesting.
So it's a question of how many are there truly. A detached ADU would be just straight new value that the town
That's what
sees,
I'm thinking.
because
Got it.
that would
Yeah.
be not take away from an existing structure.
Yep.
Land value might have to increase because land that can be developed to have a primary residence and accessory dwelling unit might be more of more value, but that would raise values, not so much generate new growth.
Does it require the assessors to be involved for us to get to identify the amount and get the money?
So they get alerts through our systems with building permits.
Yep.
So they track the building permits, and then they'll go out.
So
and,
just like
and
any
look
new
at work.
construction.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if there's a house sale, they'll send you a letter and say, hey, can we come see your house? And generally people will say no, and
No.
we'll just look on Realtor.com, see if you got a new kitchen and adjust your value. So they do that homework because they get notifications internally and they track land transactions. It is a potential growth source
Yeah,
of
gotcha.
potential new growth.
That's great.
Motions?
I'll
Miss-
make, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
Ms. Bradley, please.
Ms. Bradley, go ahead.
Oh,
Defer on
insisting.
this,
Okay.
yes.
I gotta put my glasses on then.
And this shouldn't be a motion.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no, yeah, we
No,
don't have
they're
a
not
thing.
have anything.
It's not-
Oh, right. They're
Oh,
not
that's
ready.
right.
It's
All
not
right.
ready.
See, you were talking so positive. I'm like, yes, I did it. I'm like, all right, let's go. He's ready to go. I apologize. My, what are we talking
He
about?
looked at me and said motion, so
Okay.
I was ready to go.
Okay.
5, the zoning bylaws.
5, yeah, zoning bylaws,
That's
site
not
plan
done either.
review. Not ready?
This is in a more final shape, but I don't have a final version from
Okay,
the planning
deferred.
board.
How about the next one, zoning map?
Zoning map we do have, so this is more of a procedural housekeeping item. There's been some court cases that say that if you have overlay zoning districts in your town that you've approved as part of your zoning bylaws, but you didn't amend the zoning map to incorporate them, then those overlays don't exist until you amend your zoning map. So this zoning article just takes the Brook Road Overlay District, which treats a single, really 2 properties, the old, I think it was the Knights of Columbus maybe once upon
Yeah.
a time.
Yeah.
So that overlay, if anybody remembers that, and then the Milton Village
Oh, yeah.
plan, Milton Village
And unit
overlay.
development.
Plan,
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. So those two,
I'm cheap.
we're not changing, we're not creating anything new. All we're doing is saying those 2 overlays approved by the town previously are now included as part of our zoning map. And
Want a
that's
motion?
final.
And
Do
this
we
is
want a
the-
motion
it's
on
the
this?
Planning board.
Yep, okay, submitted these.
Can we vote this tonight?
Yep.
Motion?
I'd like to make a
Ms.
motion.
Bradley, second?
Second.
Mr. Zoll, all those in
I
favor?
need to make a motion.
You did.
I
I
did
just got it for
not.
you.
The
All right,
zoning
go ahead.
bylaw amendment regarding the zoning map. Article little item 6.
Got it.
Nope.
Second?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Zoll, all those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Approved. Motion to close the, other potential orders, we'll have a lighting article at the next meeting, correct? It's before
Correct.
Town council now.
I'll make
Motion-
a motion to close the warrant.
Second,
Second.
Ms. Musto, all those in favor?
Aye.
Done. Item number 6, discuss and approval, appointment to the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, MWA Advisory Board, representative for the town of Milton, Marina Fernandez, our new Director of Public Works. Do I have a motion on that?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Marina Fernandez, Director of Public Works, to the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, the MWRA Advisory Board, as the representative for Milton. And
I'll
I am
second.
so proud to do that as a woman.
Made, second, with the $10,000 of salary? Stipend? She'll be laughing watching this at home. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 7, discussion update. East Milton deck bollards and planters. I asked this to be put on the agenda. This is something that Mr. Milano and I have been talking about, especially in light of what happened in New Orleans. As everyone knows, my background is extensive in public safety, but when the East Milton deck was built, the new deck, there were these what are they called?
Bollards.
That are there, that are truly deck. As a matter of fact, I counted tonight. 2 are down, 2 are up there. They're not true bollard. A bollard is intended to stop a vehicle. They're usually 3 to 4 feet above the ground, 3 to 4 feet in the ground. The fact that the deck is built with a membrane, there was no ability for the contractor, even though they didn't tell us, to put true bollards in there. So we've been talking, Nick and I have been talking, we've been what's been submitted to us are a series of cement planters that are used regularly, that would be on either end of the deck. And while they're fully concrete, the top of them look like they're a flower bed. They're aesthetically pleasing. They're used quite a bit, particularly around major infrastructure places of risk. I don't think we should be having any more events where we're having 1,000 people on the deck, where even if it wasn't intentional, where someone mistakenly just drove through that and wiped out, a series of individuals. And
This would be where the Adams Road.
both, yeah,
On both
both
sides.
at Adams
Yeah.
and Granite, and we have money. There's a line item of 100,000 remaining that was put there initially towards the pergola we were going to. There were $500,000 short of. We could use some of that money to do this. So you can go on and
No, I'll
I'll
just
leave it in
add
your
that
hands from.
Nick Connors, Marina Fernandez, and Deputy Alba were down at the deck yesterday, mapping out, trying to figure out exactly how many would be needed and locations. So, and Nick then will work on some pricing. The issue for us would be more so being able to move them for DPW trucks
That's
to
my
get in to
question.
do prep
Yes,
for
that's the
events,
issue.
the
Yeah,
cranes. So there's versions that have slots for forklifts.
Yeah. pick them up.
To pick them up and move them. So it would mean, some equipment would need to go down ahead of time when they're setting up for, the tree or whatever. So
Or the
it'll mean a
mowing.
slight change in our operations just to get trucks in and out of there for maintenance. But otherwise, we're working on locations and amounts, and then we'll get some pricing. They're not hugely expensive, a couple thousand each maybe. So we should be able to get enough that is safe.
Especially the attractiveness, and especially if you look at the aftermath of the New Orleans incident, it was just so easy to perpetrate. It was just so, anything from the most recent, the menorah lighting to, the Christmas tree lighting to,
Yeah, the heat lights and-
all that, and
Yeah.
the
The Chamber of Commerce event.
Yep, the Muslim holidays are coming, very soon, and that gets a big. So, I think you'd be shocked if someone sent me a series, and I want to thank the East Milton residents who's in the security business who sent me a series of photos, and I went and kind of be shocked how many places in the city already have them that we don't even realize that's the security purposes. So. I want to put it because I want to get this moving. I really don't want to approve any more large-scale events there until we get this done first. I think we need to do this to protect the residents. So thanks for getting this on the
I
agenda.
like the idea of
great.
planters too.
Very
Yeah,
good.
the planters will be
Yeah,
more
it's nice.
aesthetically pleasing, yeah. Okay, item number 8, discussion approval. No Place for Hate proclamation will be read on Monday, January 20th, 2025, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s, and that will be, is it Concord Baptist again? Am I correct? You don't know? I'm pretty
Don't
sure.
know off the top of my head.
That's where it
I
usually
assume
is.
so, but-
Is that, Lynn, is that already drawn? So I just need a motion to approve it? So could I have a motion and then a second?
I'll make a motion to approve the No Place for Hate proclamation to be read on Monday, January 20th, 2025, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Motion made by Ms.
I'll
Bradley,
second.
second by Ms. Musto. All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Aye.
Number 9, we're getting there at
Aye.
8:50. Were you and I on that? Were you and I? Okay,
yes.
Okay. Discussion approval meeting minutes, December 17th, 2024, and December 23rd, 2024.
We
We met
split
on
these
December
'cause-
23rd? Oh, yeah, we did, okay.
We split these because Aaron wasn't, you weren't at the 23rd one, right?
Yeah.
That was the vote, that was the
don't
menorah
think
vote,
you
correct?
were.
Is that the menorah vote?
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
think
That
okay,
one
so
was
let's
in
do
the
them
That
morning.
first.
Zoom one that we
It
did
was a
real
Zoom
quick.
one.
Not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes dated December 17th, 2024.
Second?
second.
Second, Ms. Musto. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain, Ms. Bradley.
No,
No,
we just.
she-
Oh, no,
no,
Ms.
no,
Bradley,
no.
yeah,
She was
my
there.
bad, my
Yeah,
bad.
she's
Next
good.
one.
Go
I'll
next
make a
one.
motion to approve the meeting minutes dated December 23rd, 2024.
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Musto. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm
Abstain,
abstaining.
Yep.
Ms. Bradley. Mr. Milano, Town Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of recapping, we had, obviously we were open for business through the holidays, but some skeleton crews in our town departments. So thanks for everybody's, the phones weren't burning up either. So we appreciate everybody had a quiet holiday season. And I was able to go down to the menorah lighting. I know Ms. Busto was there as well. So it was great to see Rabbi Benjamin. He led us in a secular celebration of the holiday, and he made a very clear point that it was such. And there was some singing involved. And that was great. So just an update, if you put if you had a trash collection and you put your Christmas tree out or holiday tree out Monday or Tuesday, Sunrise did not collect them, as you
No, they
probably
did not.
noticed.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
They had no truck in town for said tree collection, so they were called today. We expect a truck tomorrow, so leave it out. It's a week-long collection, so they'll be in town tomorrow. And then if there are stragglers after the fact, call down to DPW and we will help you out. Just a heads up, I know folks are probably aware of this, but MBTA Communities Supreme Judicial Court decision has yet to come down. The SJC posts a notice every morning at 8 if a decision is going to come out that day. So you can follow along if you like, but not yet. So I've started to get a couple questions if decisions come out, so I just wanted to flag that. Building Commissioner Joe Achu's last day in Milton was Friday. He took a position in the town of Millis, which was drastically closer to home. He lives in Rhode Island. So while we are sad to see him go, we understand the quality of life with a 20-minute commute versus an hour-and-a-half commute. So the department will be posting that building commissioner position. The town engineer position is posted if folks are interested in a local town engineer position. And then obviously Director of Planning and Community Development, Cheyenne continues to do a good job leading that department in Tim's absence, but that position is posted if folks are interested. The East Milton Fire Station is out to bid. Bids are due, I think it's January 20th, so we should have
The new East Milton
the new
Fire
East Milton
Station.
Fire
The new
Station.
East Milton Fire
Yeah,
Station.
for construction of a new East Milton Fire Station. Out to bid, bids are due January 20th. So we'll be able to report to the board, most likely at our next meeting, as the results of that bid. Probably won't award a contract, but expect to see some action on that front. We did close the existing East Milton Fire Station request for expressions of interest process. Got some feedback. We're working on a summary for the select board and some suggested next steps on that. Going back to a couple of developers with a couple of follow-up questions about that, and we'll circle back. I just want to note that 936 Brush Hill Road 40B project has started clearing that site. So the Ice House, if people haven't driven by it lately, they got to sign up, starting
sale.
to market their units.
It's good.
Yep, that's pretty good. 711 Randolph Ave is well underway. 440 Granite, which is not a 40B, but a project is well underway over in East Milton.
There's some units though. Doesn't it have 3 units? Few units. There's a couple of units.
And
Is there
then
commercial going in at the Blue Hill Ave?
at the Ice House and
At the
park.
The
Ice House, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. There's a commercial space. I have not heard
Does not
yet.
have a.
Nobody's
no
running it.
No,
Okay.
it's not.
But these projects coming in, East Milton 40B, we expect they submitted building permit information. They're hoping to start demolition in February. And then 728 Randolph Ave, which recently changed hands as well, we expect to commence permitting. So these projects are coming slowly but surely. That was really it for me, Mr. Chair.
Do you know anyone that owns any nail salons? We think we could use some more in Milton. I'm serious. I know I shouldn't say that. I'm only repeating what's been said to me so many times in the past 2 weeks. I apologize. Not to say they're not important. My wife and daughters will be yelling at me.
My father goes every couple weeks.
You get a petty?
Get a
Or?
pedicure.
Pedicure, yeah,
Lot of
pedicures.
what?
I'm thinking of doing that.
Yep. He loves it.
All right, all right. Let's get back on topic. I have no report. Public comment response, we do not have any. Future meeting dates.
Although, Mr. Chair, sorry,
Oh.
we should all congratulate you on your swearing.
Don't worry
Yes,
about it.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Thank you. Very humbling, very surreal. And I do want to, it's funny, MBTA all today. It's almost, I can't, it's like all today, people asking me about it, but just, and again, I do want to thank, I know I mentioned earlier, I really want to thank, and I know I just got there, but Matt Dunham from MSB, like the people at MSB, the site team that came out, everyone, Treasurer Goldberg's office, that, it was a 50-50 shot. You either get in or you didn't get in, and we were, when many people thought we wouldn't, and I thank everyone who commented and worked on that. I really, including my colleague Bill Driscoll, who did a lot behind the scenes that no one even knew about. So that's it. Future dates, so Tuesday, January 21st, and Tuesday, January 28th.
And or?
Oh, does it say
And/or?
Andor? It does say
It
Andor.
does.
Why does
It
that
does.
say Andor?
It wasn't,
So,
I'm going to
Because
be
of
in
the-
Is it an
China
issue?
on the 21st, so I'd prefer to the 28th.
Oh, that's why, so that's, okay, so
But
I
the
get
28th
that.
would be the normal
Yeah, because
day.
we're off.
We're usually
off-
second and
Yeah, because
fourth.
we're second and fourth here, so let's,
It was just with everything going on, I didn't know
Do we-
if this board
is
wanted.
Right,
that
that's what
enough
I thought.
time? Because we have a few outstanding articles for the warrant that have not been approved for us to put on the warrant.
So
If we go on the 28th, is that too late?
the planning board isn't meeting again until the 23rd
oh yeah, that's
anyway.
okay.
So those articles won't come in. So
So we have to meet on the 28th either way.
I think this board needs to meet on the 28th regardless.
Okay.
Okay.
And if we had to do a quick Zoom meeting just to approve those out, reopen the warrant? and-
Well, we'll be okay since we're meeting on the
Okay.
20th. They'll be after the fact.
Okay,
Just
all
means
right,
they're going to
okay.
get to the warrant committee,
So it'll be the lighting
Late.
ones and then whatever the planning board
the
does.
ADUs and site plan if they finalize those, correct?
ADUs, right, okay, sorry, I forgot that.
So we're not doing the 21st, we're doing the
No.
28th,
28th,
correct?
right.
Which puts us back on schedule.
Right, right.
Oh,
28th.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I was wondering about
Yeah.
We're a
that.
week
We're
early,
a
yeah,
week
so we're
early.
off. Someone's
Okay.
going, someone's
you.
going on a field trip, just around the corner.
Well, that,
No.
I
I'm only
planned
kidding.
that,
I
I
get it.
planned
Listen, I
that
get
field
it.
trip
I get
because
it.
it fit within
I get
our
it.
usual schedule.
I get it.
And
Wait,
if
you
anybody
going
would
to
like to
China?
fly for 26 hours,
You get your shots?
in my place. I have had my shots.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be the 28th and then we would do the
11th.
11th, so we're back to 2nd and 4th.
Yeah.
Okay, my calendars have been all messed up.
Yeah.
2nd and
Again,
4th.
that we may need, depending on
I
where
get
the
it.
board's voting at on terms of the budget and override, not if there may need to be a meeting sooner than after the 28th. Not wait until February 11th, I guess.
Okay.
But I think
Oh,
we
yeah,
can
I got it.
determine on the
Okay.
28th, but
Oh.
just flagging
You
it for
back?
But it wouldn't be
Yeah,
before
once
the
I'm back, I'm
28th.
back, yeah.
Wouldn't, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
So we
It's
can
just a
do-
week ongoing.
We can do all that stuff on the 28th and still be in good shape.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving
So
right
still
along at
the 11th,
8:50.
but maybe sooner.
Correct.
Moving right, that would be an extra, John. The
Oh, I
sooner
see.
would be
Keep
an
the
extra,
11th and
yeah.
have
Keep
an
the
extra.
11th in there, yeah. Moving right along at 8:59, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, Mr. Cohen, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, thank you everyone at home. Stay warm, bundle up. We're having an exceptionally cold winter here.
Yes.
Thank you, have a good night.